Hi, I'm Amitai Meged, and we are worthiness-based psychotherapy. And today I'm going to talk to you about sexual or physical attraction and reflected sense of self. Many couples come to me with a very important question: can they ignite their sexual attraction to one another? And the first question that I ask them is, was there sexual attraction or physical attraction in the beginning? This is an important question, because if there was sexual attraction in the beginning, there is a good chance that we can enliven it, we can ignite it. But if there wasn't, I'm not sure we can fix that. So sexual attraction or physical attraction comes from two sources. It has the biological and chemical component, and it has the emotional component. The physical, biological, chemical component has to do with pheromones. Pheromones are smells, actually, that comes from our hormones that we spread around, and other people can smell them and be attracted to it or not. We can actually check it by, for example, giving people shirts with the sweat or the body odor of possible mates. And it's very, very clear when we smell it that we like very much some body odors, but we don't like others. So this is something that is given. Either we are attracted to it or not. Actually, it's interesting that the pheromones has to do with the immune system. Our immune system is attracted to other immune system that is very, very different from ours. So we are attracted to people with different immune systems. Think about a couple that comes together and they have very similar immune system. What will happen is that their child will have the same immune system as theirs, which means that he will be able to fight the same viruses as his parent. But if the immune system is complex and is made up from two very different immune systems, that means that his immune system will be much stronger and will be able to fight very different kinds of viruses. I'm coming back to this subject of attraction. Pheromones, there is nothing we can do about it. I mean, this is our body odor, and either we are attracted to another person or we are not. But there is another component, and the other component is important no less and maybe more than the first one. That is the emotional component, and it has to do with self-value and our self-image. And it has to do with a concept that we call reflected sense of self, which is connected to solid sense of self, or opposite to solid sense of self. What is reflected sense of self? Reflected sense of self means that our sense of self, our self-value, our self-worth, our image has to do with what other people think about and feel to us. So we feel attractive or we feel interesting if other people think we are attractive or interesting. Solid sense of self, on the other hand, has to do with our own encounter with ourselves and evaluating ourselves through our own ladder of values. So when we look at ourselves through our own eyes, it doesn't mean that we'll go around the world and think that we're just great all the time and be happy with ourselves. No. Sometimes we'll be happy, and sometimes we will criticize ourselves. Sometimes we think that our achievements are we should be proud of, and sometimes we'll have serious criticism towards ourselves. And that is good, because a solid sense of self is built only when we can trust ourselves to be true, to evaluate ourselves on true values and not just on what we feel. Now, let's go back to reflected sense of self. What happens with sexual attraction and reflected sense of self? What happens is that a person with reflected sense of self not only is dependent on other people to give him his sense of self, his sense of worth, his feelings of attractiveness, he also tries to manipulate them, to maneuver them, to push them into giving him the reflected sense of self that he wants. So, for example, I'm at work and I was talking to a colleague and I had a fight with him, and now I'm coming back home and I want to tell my wife about it. And I have a reflected sense of self. That means that my wife can maybe judge me or maybe be happy with me and maybe say, well, you're right and he's wrong. Or she can say many things. I want to make the impression that will strengthen my sense of self. So on the way home, I already censor my story and I delete some parts and I make other parts very strong in order to make the impression that I want on her. And when I come home, I look at her in her eyes and her body language and I read her and I change my story while I'm saying it in order to make the impression that I want. Now she can give me the impression that I want, and maybe she will think differently than me. And if she thinks differently than me, then I'm angry at her, and I'm saying that we have a problem of trust, because I talked to her very, very openly and honestly, and she didn't respond the way I wanted, and it's not right. But the real truth of it is that I am trying to put a lot of pressure on her to look at me the way I want her to look at me. So what happens to the other person? Is this attractive? When I am forced to think about my spouse, that she is attractive, that she's interesting, and I know that I cannot really tell her what I think, I need to tell her what she wants me to say, I feel forced. This is not attractive. I'm not attracted to her. Actually, the opposite. What I want to do is run away. I don't want to give it to her. And we all know it in a deep level. We know that when we force the other person or manipulate the other person to give us the impression that we need, he doesn't like it. He wants to go away, or she wants to go away. But nevertheless, we are doing our best to do that. So people, instead of working and building their own self-worth, they try to do it through the other person. They try to maneuver him and manipulate him, and he runs away. What would happen if, instead of that, I would think and look at inside? As a therapist, I asked people, what do you think about yourself? Do you value yourself? Do you think you're worth? I asked them, would you have sex with yourself? Do you think you're attractive? Because if you don't want to have sex with yourself, why would your partner want to have sex with you? If you don't think you're attractive, why would your partner be attracted to you? So I want to invite you to confront yourself and look at yourself. Are you attractive? How are you going to be attractive to yourself? How are you going to be worthy for yourself, instead of looking for the answers and for the impression in the other person? Thank you very much.